Ferguson. I'll be facilitating today. Welcome to the Bridges 2 Forestry Workshop. And just first off, with all things work and play, safety and well-being, in the event of an emergency, your exits. And if you need to, washrooms are in the back. We'll be focusing on moving forward and evolving the local forest economy. And we all have had significant challenges in the past with closures of local manufacturers and a substantial decrease in our allowable annual cut. However, we have adapted and we will move forward. This afternoon's agenda is provided in your participant packages. We'll have a couple presentations this afternoon, leading to a coffee break near 4:30. We'll have a couple more presentations and a group discussion based on those presentations. We'll convene to the Lions Club for dinner around 7 and finish off the evening with another great presentation, more discussion, and what our next steps could be based on the information we'll learn today. These chairs aren't the best. I know this. They're not conducive for a 6-hour workshop. So if you need to stretch or whatever, just feel free. I want to re-emphasize that the discussion that we have today is key, and diversification is necessary for success. And hopefully today we can discover a few niche markets which will play a huge role if we are to move forward. I'd like to present, as on the agenda, Mr. Chris Ortner, Bridges 2. We have Mark Londerdoner of the McBride Community Forest, Craig Pryor of the Belmont Community Forest. I myself will be speaking on behalf of Scott Olson of Olympic Industries. He sends his regrets, he's fallen ill. Mike Yurkovic from the Community Purchase, Fraser Fort George, and finally David Dubois, Wood Waste to Rural Heat Initiatives.
How about the president of the community forest? President of the community forest.
Oh, you're jumping ahead there.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
So that being said, we'll begin with His Worship, Mr. Mayor, Andrew McCracken.
Welcome, everybody. I was just in Prince George, getting into trouble there on behalf of the people of Valemount who, anyways. There I got to go to the surgeon. I just got off my crutches today. He sort of faith healed me just before coming here. I was pretty sick and I needed to go to the regional district meeting, so I had to negotiate with I just got married with my new wife about going to the regional district. She's like, no, you're not allowed to drive there or whatever. I was supposed to take the train to Prince George. It goes on Wednesday and come back on Saturday, but I didn't want to miss this. So I concocted a really elaborate lie so that I could get back here to participate in this. But fortunately for my very fresh and young marriage, I was able to tell the truth and get here. And the surgeon actually endorsed me driving. So, on the way back, I picked up some hitchhikers, and we were talking about the history of the forestry in the valley, as I understand it. I mean, I wasn't here. I've only been here for about 13 years. But we often talk about what happened in the past. You know, we have lots of experienced people who live here. Like, I don't know if anybody knows Maxine McCurdy, but Maxine McCurdy, she split ties as a youngster. As a 13-year-old, instead of going to school, she was splitting ties. Forestry is a part of our history here. And unfortunately, you know, things happen, the world moves forward, and agglomeration, and we get companies that pay way more than the smaller mills, and before long we've just got one mill, one tenure for the whole valley. that makes us, despite having this great resource around us, it's not been ours. It's been never been ours. It's always been the property of the Queen. And you'd think we'd be frickin' Saudi Arabians here with all this wood, with all this resource here. But for some reason we haven't been. So today, I hope we get to figure out how we get value from the forests. And I want to say, I feel ashamed to say this, but I just rolled into town and I'm having trouble with my legs or whatever. So I stopped at the brewery again and had a light beer before coming out here. But the brewery is a beautiful thing. I don't know anything about forestry, but I'll tell you this, when I go to the brewery and drink a beer at the brewery, the local brewery, almost all that money stays in town, except for the taxes. So I don't buy beer from the liquor store anymore because I don't want my money going out of town. And the thing is, we've only got 1,000 people here right now. If we want this town, I'm speaking about Valemount, if we want this town to survive, I think we can do some smart things to help keep the town alive. Which is one thing, let's stop shipping all our money out of town. Do you guys know how this place is heated? It's heated with propane. We're making like dudes in Texas rich. It's insanity. So we need to stop that. And I hope that we can figure out some stuff with forestry on how to keep the money in town. Certainly heating, but that's only one component. You know, we got all this wood waste up on the hillside that's just being burned in open slash piles, and Gord's always chewing my brain off like, dude, we can burn it. We can heat all the buildings in town. But we got to find a way to do that. And so I hope the brains in the room and the experience that we have in logging and the experience that we have in milling can pay off so we can be, like, we don't need an economic miracle. We just need shit to make sense. And then we'll be as wealthy as we need to be. We'll have as many jobs as we need to be and need to have. Anyways, that's my little rant there. You can tell things didn't go well in Prince George.
Next we have Chris Ortner, Bridges 2, to give us an overview. Chris Ortner is a mediator, a forester, economic development specialist living in Kamloops. He was born and graduated from school in Coquitlam, and after attending BCIT and UBC in forestry, Chris moved to Sechelt with his wife Barb, where they started their family, and they have 3 sons. He has managed a forestry company, a small sawmill, and volunteered for Community Futures business development work. Much like everybody here, took him to Kamloops in 1991, a place where they knew well from many visits over the years. Chris worked as a woodlands manager for Adams Lake Lumber, where he was responsible for all lands and timber tributary to the mill. In '95, Chris changed jobs, became a senior manager with provincial government responsible for land-related investments in the southern interior, research investments throughout BC. In 2000, he completed a master's program at Royal Roads University and began his current career in economic development and mediation through his own firm, Cirque Resources. It's my great pleasure to introduce Chris Ortner.
Well, thanks for inviting me to come to the workshop, and thanks, Mr. Mayor, for those inspiring words. And I really do agree with what you've got to say. And you know, like, my whole heart is in this business. I've worked, you know, even before the formal education. You know, I grew up working in the sawmills down in the Fraser Valley when there were some. I worked at Gilbert Smith Forest Products when I was going to high school because my family's got property at Adams Lake. So I spent my entire life working in this business. And just like everyone here, I've seen the cycle. And you know, a lot of people are very depressed about the way the business is now because all the big mills have packed up and moved away. But I see it as a huge opportunity, and that's why I was so pleased to be offered the opportunity to do this work with Bridges 2, because it really is getting in touch with community forests, woodlot licenses, private landowners, local entrepreneurs to basically rebuild the forest economy from the ground up. How often do you have a chance to do that? You know, we've got excellent developed industrial land that's served by rail. You know, the highways are in great shape. There's lots of opportunities coming up to use wood waste to provide power, to provide heat. You know, and you're, like you say, we're living in the Saudi Arabia of wood. It's all around us. We just need to learn how to, or relearn how to do it better, how to use it. You know, it's just like going back to the late 50s with the little mills, the tie mills, and lots of local employment. Everybody's busy. That's, you know, to me, that's not out of reach. And providing local lumber for local housing, all of those things, getting to be a sustainable community again. So, you know, that's kind of where I'm at. So this goal here, and everyone has a copy of this goal statement, it's collaboration at a sub-regional level. So this is actually a pilot. So we've got the McBride to Barrier piece, and then I'm doing another piece in the West Kootenay, which has got similar issues, right? Where the big boys have left town, people are scrambling, and you know, we're looking around saying, okay, well, who do we still have here? Because the work that I did when I first did my rounds, which I did for a few months in a row, tried to go to as many mills and talk to as many people as I could. That's what I found was it was people that were rooted in the community. They were in sometimes second or third generation. Lots of them were, and they were still on their land, on their father's land, their grandfather's land. And they're working it, and you know, it's their kids that are coming in. So we need to acknowledge that that's what we've got. So everybody here that's on this list recognizes the issues. So these are your friends, and they're willing to put up money to say so. So the SIBAC, OBAC, these are trust funds. Everybody knows there's money from the province that goes into a trust, and it's meted out carefully. And excellent, like that's the new government funding, so we need to pay attention to those and make sure that all of the communities, I'm really happy that Silvio is here in this community because he's great at reaching out and attracting that money in. The Community Forest Association, and Mark is here, happy to see Mark. You're still a president, right?
No, I stepped down.
Okay, that's right, it's Don now. But anyways, Mark's been a great supporter of this program right from the start. And then the Woodlots, of course, JISC is here, and the Columbia Basin Trust. And I think, do we have a speaker later from Columbia Basin?
I'll be speaking on their behalf.
Okay, so that's, you're the new Linda?
Yeah.
So here's our objectives. So basically, look at the fiber, look at the business opportunities that are related to the fiber, and then look at business models. And so there's a number of projects that we have that are dedicated to doing this. And we also have some unallocated funds because some of the original project list didn't come to fruition. So later on, after we have our session here, I'd like to have a few minutes of your time to pick your brains and find out what people in Valemount would like to see. Because we'd like to do a project here after this workshop, sort of as a follow-up. So, you know, whether it be business planning or, you know, whatever you guys think would be appropriate. So I did this session up and this summary up for the BCCFA, who I attended their AGM. And these are some of the common issues that we see throughout both of my areas that I'm working. The wood waste solution, everybody's crying out for a wood waste solution. I mean, it's so obvious, right? Especially before the markets jumped up, the mills were asking for 6.5-inch tops. So even though the cutting permit utilization standard says 4-inch, we're cutting back to 6.5. That means all those tops, which are 30% basically of the forest, is left out there. Plus all the small trees that didn't quite make it. So you know, you pretty well need an 8-inch or 9-inch butt to make a 6.5-inch top that'll bunk. So you know, there's a lot of wood being wasted. So hemlock and birch, another one, they're being logged around in many cases. And this has been a problem. I mean, when I started my career in this country 20 years ago, hemlock was around 8% of the standing timber inventory. Now it's close to 20. And we've been logging around it for a long time. And you know, eventually we're going to have to say, okay, well, what are we doing with this hemlock? And actually now's a good time with rig mats and stuff needed in Alberta. It's great, and you can put in a facility that'll cut that, and Marv will talk about this later, for a pretty reasonable price. So local affordable supply of logs to small manufacturers, we need that to get things going. So this needs, and we've all been subject to this, it's sort of it's just a business model, I guess, from the bigger companies that they want to buy all of your wood or none of your wood. So you can't peel off poles or high value or whatever, they want it all. And so if people start acting together, then you can go to your buyers and say, well, look, we want 15 or 20% because we got a little business here in the community that needs to be supported. How do you feel about that? And I'm finding that they're actually starting to soften up on it, and I've talked to a lot of log buyers that are willing to go in that direction, but they got to be asked. So clusters and cooperation, they exist, and I saw a lot of it around McBride with, you know, the guy doing the flooring, getting his wood from the small sawmiller and that sort of stuff. It's out there. Also noted that value-added businesses can bring their materials from a heck of a long ways away, not even knowing that there's people right in there. So we're doing a value-added study to identify every single person, their wood needs and what they produce. So I talked about bush run. The difference on the opinion of community forest rule, I just noted this because it's an issue for the BCCFA. In some communities, community forests look at themselves as an economic development agency. In others, they don't. They look at themselves as a small forest company who's just making the best buck and just doing the job. So it's all in how you perceive your own community forest. So that's something that needs to be pondered locally. So looking at a future state, we need to have better knowledge of local availability of logs and leverage the attention from buyers to enable those higher log prices. So, and then the value-added businesses I mentioned, work on that and making sure we have a full accounting of who's out there. The biomass waste handling and processing, David's here to talk about some of the opportunities there. That's very exciting stuff. What the worldwide processes and opportunities that the technology is going to drive the local solution. BCTS, success of local ventures. And in fact, one of the original reasons that this is in here is because of Jason's quandary and not being able to get cedar. When we know there's lots of cedar down the lake, just a matter of convincing BCTS to put up a sale that you can afford to buy, not something that's 100,000 cubes, but something that you can actually take on. And we need to do more of that and get the province involved in helping to serve a local solution. Underutilized species, new businesses and opportunities, checking consumption of waste users. We don't really know how much waste is out there in a lot of cases. I don't know if a study's been done up here, but in some cases they have been. Log sort yards, and Craig and I have talked about the potential to check. I've got an amazing American model. It's an Excel model. It needs to be gone through maybe with a partner, and we've talked about maybe doing that here to use the log sort yard model, which is an economic analysis model similar to Marv's economic analysis model for sawmill construction, and it's directly at log sort. So that might be useful to look at that in Valemount. And then non-timber forest products market, this was more something I heard in the Kootenays, but you know, there's a lot of stuff that is bought in the lower mainland, especially, you know, who thinks that going out and cutting cedar that you could make a living at it, but you can. Cedar and salal, things that are common. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that for now, but I want to come back to you later on and talk about what we're doing with our projects and maybe build on that and identify a new project here for this area. Any questions?